No, I think I'm gonna take a pit stop before I call them. Before I Let's get me up this time.
His wife, Bruce's wife Diane was a nun, you know.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
Does she still hold theological beliefs?
I don't know, but I know there was a scandal of the the school, a good scandal back in the early '70s, I guess. Did you have some of that?
I think I'm going to save it.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Numbness?
Pain.
Pain?
Yeah, like in the lower back.
Hey, would you try sitting in that chair designed for people's backs?
Is it?
You did.
No.
Try it. See if you like it. Vicki says it's an improvement.
Well, here, why don't you do it after?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just want, only because I'm trying to get, I want to let them know. I mean, you could,
How was the, what is that, apple?
go ahead.
How was it?
There's- Oh, I tried the coconut.
I had coconut. The other one's apple?
I'm guessing.
Yeah. I
It
just
looks
had
like
a
it.
piece, This was at Foibles, a little place on Rhode Island,
Uh-huh.
where I live, that area.
You recommend them?
Oh yeah, Sage just makes her own stuff. Yeah. A little coffee
Very
shop.
good.
Is that the bakery that is managed and owned by the workers?
I think she's the only one there. Myself. It's good.
Yeah, I think they might have it handy. Yep, there. Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
It's a pretty significant discount.
Wow. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, although I did just find some people who supposedly take my health insurance, and so that might cover it completely true. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to check. I'm going to check on both of them. But in the meanwhile, I hope they found the thing. So values. Oh. Wow. So that was a great
Is he
show,
going
wasn't
outside
it?
to do something?
What?
Is he going outside?
He's going outside to have a cigarette. Yeah. So, yeah. That's him going
He's
outside.
complaining about his health and he's going out to get a cigarette.
Well, what can I say? No. I smoked, I started smoking at 12. I was smoking a pack a day by 14. And then I continued on, addicted to quitting. Addicted to quitting. I quit when I was 21. I quit for 3 years. When I was in my maybe early 30s, I quit for 7 years. But I quit hundreds of times. I quit thousands of times, maybe, all told. Because I kept saying, I think I'll have a better start date will be that one. You know, better quit date. You know, so I'll start now so that I can smoke for a week or two. You know, but meanwhile, when I was smoking, and especially if I was just about to quit, I would smoke like a chimney. You know, 2 or even 3 packs in a day if I'm just about to quit again. So it was terrible. Oh, terrible. And I finally quit smoking the day of my mom's funeral service. So, February 25th of 2008. So I would no more dare have a puff off a cigarette than jump off a bridge, you know, because it was just so painful. just keep starting and quitting, starting and quitting. Because I have no credibility to myself, right, for quitting. So, anyway, so I don't judge anybody about smoking, but boy, do I love not smoking.
If you're ever in the mood for a joke about nicotine addiction, I'd like to share it with you.
Did they come in? I think they did.
You are correct.
I just happened to know because they said thanks, so then I noticed that they did. Oops, darn, I missed it.
Hello.
So it's going to be just you and Zoom, right?
Yeah, just me and hi. There's Mark. There's Heidi.
Hi.
Hi. Whoops. Wait.
Do I need headphones?
Hi. Thank you both. So this is going to be quite a change of pace over what we were just doing. So Pete Seeger, so the ultimate in like inspiration of good-heartedness and integrity and everything, and to now the people we'll be talking about, So anyway, it's the anniversary actually of when he passed away. Was the 27th of January. And actually the Peace Center, he sang at the Peace Center dinner that just 2 months before he passed. So anyway, it was a thrill to have him there. So we have so I'm excited to have both of you here. It'll just be the three of us. Jerry never got back to me, but I took that as a no because we talked enough about it. He knew that we really wanted him to, and honestly, we know that he wanted to, but he also needed not to. It didn't work for him, so that's the way it is.
That's all right.
Yeah.
My video looks awfully hot. Like, is that? Should I move? So.
What do you mean? It bright? Too bright or something?
My face is washed out completely, but on the shot that I'm seeing here, but not on my camera.
Well, Richard. So meet Richard first of all. If you haven't met,
Hi, Richard.
Hello.
Heidi has met Richard before.
So what's happening is Zoom is sending us your picture. We're taking your pictures and we're putting them on Facebook. Facebook is sending us back a picture, which I'm sending to Zoom. So you're getting a copy of a copy of a copy, and that's why it looks the way it does. But that's not the way it's going over the air.
It's not. Okay.
Correct.
So should I keep my light on then?
Your face was perfect the way you had it.
Okay. Let me turn it back here. There we go.
And it's you can turn it down a little bit more. Your light. It's nice to talk to somebody who is concerned about the quality of the image. Because we have had people on the show that had a blaring light behind them and they were in total silhouette. And Vicki had to say, could you turn maybe a little bit so we can get some light on your face?
Right. No, we need light on the faces, But anyway, that's why I'm glad I'm in the studio where Richard takes care of all of that. So I don't need to worry about that. But anyway, you look great, Heidi. And both of you do. And I'm not, I'm glad that Richard and you, Mark, are paying attention to those finer points.
Okay.
Just making sure. So anyway, and we have our basic run of show, which is very basic. So it's basically like, I'll introduce, the show and you all, and then we'll do a little something about values, the values we want to uphold in the conversation or around this issue, and then we'll talk about January 6th, and then we'll talk about the local aspects of that, that play into right now. So we can talk about voting rights, or we can talk about the political situation right now in light of that event of January 6th, and all the other, and the groups and their activity, coming out of that. And then, how can people help or get more involved, that kind of thing. So that'll be it. And it'll run just under an hour. So, because we need to be under an hour for Buff State, for the radio show.
Right.
So anyway.
Mark, you can even make your light weaker.
Weaker.
Nice.
I'm trying to catch my puppy.
Perfect.
I'll be right back.
Oh, okay. You're not going to bring your puppy on stage?
Well, I'm trying, but he won't let me catch it.
He doesn't want to. What's your dog's name? Your puppy?
Chase?
Pace? Oh,
Chase.
Oh, Chase. Oh, Chase.
Chase.
Oh, well.
And it's living up to it.
Jace or Chase?
Chase, like the bank.
Oh, Chase, like yeah, right. Like you have to chase him. Yeah.
My dog's sitting over here on her bed, but she's pretty tuckered out. She had her booster shots today for
Really?
Stuff. So, yeah, she's just kind of chilling, but she may.
Oh, there's an adorable dog. Yes. Here comes Chase.
Oh, there she is.
Oh, boy. Or oh, girl, I should say. Yeah. Well, mine is Pippi Longstocking, and she's at home, so that's where she belongs. She's probably lying on the bed, too. Pretty tuckered out.
Facebook's ready when you're ready.
Okay. Well, and I just want to make sure everybody that do you have water or your phone's turned off or everything you need?
Make sure my phone's off.
Yeah, that's what I try to do. I just think, because it's happened before, that people call me while we're on the air, something like that. So, yeah, just make sure of that, and that you have water in case you need it. And so I think we're ready to roll, if you're ready. So everyone's ready? Yep. Okay.
Go for it.
Okay, so Richard?
Okay.
I'm flipping the switch.
And you have it set to 59:59?
Yep.
Okay, put the clapper in front of your face. When you hit the clapper, you're on the air.
Welcome to Talking Peace, being recorded here at Think Twice Radio in the home of the future. Thanks to our friend and producer, Richard Wicca. Thanks, Richard. And there's Richard. You can see him. There he is. For those of you who can see him. So we're very excited about sharing this from Think Twice Radio on the Western New York Peace Center's Facebook page and a lot of our respective Facebook pages, as well as we're very excited always to be part of the programming on WBNY. That is Buffalo's original alternative radio station out of Buff State. Very wonderful at 91.3 FM. Thank you for joining us on WBNY. And then I would just remember that we are here on Haudenosaunee land, stolen Haudenosaunee land, and we learn from our indigenous brothers and sisters to be grateful for this creation and to try and acknowledge and appreciate all that is going on in all the different elements and beings in the creation. And we are very especially grateful to be here with our special guests on this very alarming topic. So I think, being grounded is so important to think of when we think about what happened on January 6th of 2021. And now it's a little over a year later, and to think about what happened, think about what it means here locally as well as nationally. And we have two people who've been paying a lot of attention that we can learn a lot from, who are going to help us. And we'll go in the Haudenosaunee tradition of going counterclockwise to at least how I'm seeing you. So Heidi Jones. Hi, Heidi. So Heidi is here. Heidi is a lawyer, is an activist, is a truth teller, really, and who's been paying a lot of attention, trying to safeguard I will call it our semblance of democracy. We're still working to perfect it and not to go backwards on it the way it sometimes seems we are. So I would mention Buffalo Concerned Neighbors is one concerned group, and lots of ways that Heidi's been working on this and very instrumental locally. So thank you, Heidi, for joining us.
Thank you. Actually, my Twitter feed is probably the best way to follow what I've been looking at and researching.
Sure.
Twitter.com/JamminTurtle, JAMNTURTL.
Oh, Jammin' Turtle. Oh,
So there's a
good.
lack of vowels, but yeah.
Well, all I know about turtles is it brings me back to the Haudenosaunee and Turtle Island. So, continuing that theme. So, anyway, and we're also very excited. We have Marc Odien of WNY Media who's joining us. Thanks, Marc.
Thanks, Vicki. Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, we're so grateful to have you on, and I know, again, this is something that you've reported a lot on, especially the local, and both of you really paying attention to what's happening locally in terms of the movements that ended up creating that insurrection on January 6th. So maybe before we really start to dive into it, if we can back to trying to give us the oomph to really face the brute, the values that we want to uphold in this conversation. So I'm going to invite you to just mention whatever you think, whatever drives you to work on this that has to do with the values, or the values that you want us to keep in mind as we're talking about this. So, Heidi?
Go ahead, Heidi.
Hey, you mean this isn't a heavy-duty showdown with Marc?
Oh, no. Yeah, it's not a heavy-duty showdown, although we have, once in a while, we've had those too. But anyway, all kinds of different connections and
Like
combinations.
Upholding values of civility and the goal of having a multiracial, multi-generational democracy.
Yes. Hallelujah. Yes. Alhamdulillah. Those are great values that we want to uphold. And Marc, do you have some special one or ones you want to bring up?
I think, truth being one of them. We've been very adamant about, keeping people honest, and then accountability. Which we haven't really seen a lot of yet. So hopefully things are moving in the right direction with that. But I think those are the two values that we hope to bring here today.
Also critical, very, very important. I will echo what you said about truth. I think that's, and I almost always will go right to truth and love. And love means not hating. Love definitely means not hating on, villainizing, or anything else, which is one of the things that we see a lot of. So those elements, and truth certainly being a key element. So I think with that, let's just start with what happened on January 6th, and maybe. Marc, as a reporter, if you want to say, what would you, how would you summarize what happened on January 6th?
Chaos. It was meant to be chaos. And the more that we're learning about it, the more we're finding out that it was more of a planned set of events that occurred that were orchestrated by a group of people, whether it was President Trump or not. There were definitely people around him, some local, some people that, names that seem to constantly pop up all the time, the Steve Bannons and Roger Stones and Michael Caputos of the world. But that's what happened. People went. I think a lot of people went for the purpose of, seeing President Trump and being a part of something. and just kind of got caught up in this entire wave of hate and anger. And it still carries on to this day. A year later, we're still here.
And Heidi, what would you say? What would you add to that from your perspective about actually the January 6th event? Insurrection. Oops, somehow you're sounded.
It was intended to disrupt the constitutional process of transfer of power,
Right.
and to prevent the recognition of Biden's win in the November election.
Right.
And they pushed hard, and the chaos on the floor of Congress was paralleled with this very destructive litigation strategy that was 60-0 or 65-0 against all of the Trump team's assertions. And then there was a third strategy. There was also the strategy of getting the alternative electors to be seated, for those votes to be recognized instead of the valid electoral college representatives.
From my perspective, I just feel so much of like hidden in plain sight. And that's the story of Trump that I've seen right along. We had, I want to say, the Western New York Peace Center had an impeachment rally on July 2nd of 17, because it had seemed hidden in plain sight, the illegal acts from the very beginning. So even now when they're sort of saying, we need to check this all out and things like that and be sure of our facts. Well, the facts are, there's things that were said, that, I quotes that came from him, quotes that came from other people on his behalf that were very clear in terms of fighting and directing people to fight.
Oh, absolutely. That was, you can kind of, leading up to January 6th, you can tell it started months in advance.
Right.
There were people calling saying, look out, because something's going to happen. This guy's not going to go peacefully. People like Bill Maher, who, some people thought he was crazy, but ultimately he was right. The guy wasn't going to go peacefully. Even locally, we can look to our friend from East Aurora, or I don't want to call him a friend, but in September, he was on Facebook Live, which basically ended his reign as the secretary, whatever he was, the media person for HHS. So,
September 2020.
HHS being...
Yeah, it's September of 2020, talking about, get your guns and be ready.
What's HHS? What is HHS?
The Health and Human Services.
Oh, okay.
Media.
Right.
Michael Caputo was the spokesperson for the Department of Health and Human Services.
Oh, okay.
In the Trump administration.
Right.
At that
right,
point.
Right.
And then after his Facebook rant, they put him on medical leave.
Right. That's right. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say his name too much, but
I know, right?
Winds up popping up somewhere.
Well, this is the thing, and this comes back.
Problem.
Well, this is one of the other things is so, that the fear and hate, the way they operate. So there's a certain and lies. So that's the other thing. So, that there was no electoral fraud. There was no. First of all, we know that voting, that illegal voting by an individual is a practically unheard of. There have been isolated cases there, just minuscule, negligible amount. But all of the lying that surrounded it and all the manipulations that are being used right now, the new laws that have been enacted in local, for local elections and for local electors or election officials, is a very shocking piece of that I think, we have to be more than concerned about. It's just really hard to get our minds around what's going on right now, because it's still going on. The January 6th was one thing, and then meanwhile the different, you mentioned these 3 strategies, right? So what would you say, Heidi, are those 3 strategies all being used right now, or which of them are in some of the changes that you see going on?
Well, I think that, they're obviously not trying to prevent Biden from taking office, but they
Right.
are looking forward to 2022 and 2024 and setting up a voting structure in which partisans can control the outcome of an election, and also instituting dramatic voter suppression tactics. Mm-hmm. For example, just one example, Georgia made it illegal to provide water to people standing in line to vote. Just as one example. I mean, how ridiculous.
How ridiculous. Right. It's just so unthinkable. I mean,
but it is, the whole goal is to prevent people from voting.
Right.
I think, when you look at things on a local level, especially when it comes, January 6th may have been about getting Donald Trump reelected as still to remain president.
Right.
But, that obviously is out the window. And what you see now are a lot of the same people taking up different issues. You have school board issues, you have COVID mandates, you have anti-vax, anti-mask mandates, all these things that they're kind of, forming coalitions on, mm-hmm. But it's all the same. It's the same premise. It's the same idea of disruption.
Right. Well, right now, things are very disrupted just because of the COVID. So I think that you bring up a very interesting point, and it's one that's been discussed, somewhat in different circles that I've been in. And the fact that we've discussed somewhat in a previous show with you, Heidi, about how, at times the anti-masking or anti-vaxxing has been used as sort of the thin end of the wedge or something, or a way of trying to get people to sort of come on in and build community and make friends with people and start to lead them along the garden path towards thinking that that vote suppression is a legitimate democratic endeavor, which by definition a democracy is that it's one person, one vote. So the citizens who are able to vote, that should be impartial, that should be available, that people should be encouraged to vote and not discouraged to vote. So if the electoral strategy is we're going to prevent as many people as possible from voting, or the people that we think may not vote for us, we'll try to stop their voting to get it. It's a totally, there's no integrity in that strategy. I mean,
no, it's
that's
all about
obvious.
Power. It's
right.
all about, and when we hear media trying to balance or show fairness, mm-hmm. It's creating this sense that somehow these sides are equally valid, and they're not.
Right.
There is a demonstrable truth, an empirical truth that is being ignored for political purposes so that they can gain power.
Right.
retain or gain.
I'm sorry, what was the last part you said?
Retain the power that they have and gain new power.
I'm so glad you said that, and I want to turn it back to Marc again on the question of what the media strategy, if you want to call it that, of actually having. Oops, there's something. Oh, that's what happened. I wondered what that noise was. That's okay. We're all set now. It was a little distracting. But the strategy of, and we've often seen reporters do it. There'll be a protest and there'll be a counter protest. So they go to the protesters and say, or the original that rally, hear what they say, and then they go to the other side, the people on the other side, and hear what they say. And there's something to that. But when there's lots of people on one side, or where there's investigative reporting, those other things, like you're saying, the truth of the matter can be established. So
Right, and in addition, it's about who they count as human.
Right.
Who is allowed to have access to resources, power, voting, whatever. So we have to be really aware in those rhetorical moments who is being denied rights,
right.
denied presence, denied humanity.
Right.
On a media level, going back to that a little bit, I think there's this, especially when it comes to local news, your Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 7, they're so concerned about having that balance, that false equivalence of this person is anti-mask, so I gotta find someone who's this person supports the mask mandate, I gotta find someone who doesn't support the mask mandate. There or whatever the issue is. And I think that's dangerous. It's always been dangerous. I've been running Western New York Media Network for almost 15 years now. And people always say, oh, you're not balanced, you're not fair. We're always fair, but we might not necessarily be balanced. And that's kind of my motto, is because sometimes there isn't balance. Sometimes the other side of the story is just wrong. It's unethical, it's unmoral, it's just wrong. And I think, it's tough, especially in the world of social media, but I think as journalists, we have to come to terms with, we don't always have to show both sides of a story when one is morally and ethically, not valid.
Well, that's where the investigative journalism comes, right? Is that people need to have time, and they need to take the time. And, it's so much easier and quicker to just say, well, we'll get this side and we'll get the other side. Now we're done. And then we've done my job. I've done my job. No, because the facts and the truth of the matter needs to be presented to the public so people can make an informed decision based on the facts.
And that goes back to accountability, right? So you can tell a story and have it on the news, and then the next day or day after, nobody thinks about it anymore because they don't follow up. There is no investigative process. There is no, follow up, basically. So things just kind of sit on a vine and go and die. And then there's no accountability and nobody's held responsible. And you can see that a lot, especially even with the January 6th, the local people that we have who were arrested on January 6th locally from Western New York. There hasn't been any accountability yet. In fact, the one that was held most accountable so far is back doing what he was doing before January 5th.
So tell us a little bit more about that. Some of the local, let's go into that a little bit more again. The local aspects.
So at my last count, there were seven or eight Western New Yorkers who wound up being charged with some sort of crime from January 6th. Some of them were more high profile than others. There was even a couple from Rochester and out. So I think there were about 9 or 10 throughout the western part of New York State who wound up being charged. And some of those were some of the most vile, vicious crimes that took place on that day. Some of them weren't, but some of them were. And, as of now, they're still running through the courts. There's still court dates set and this, that, and the other thing. But for the most part, they're going back to their normal life before, from January 5th of last year. They're asking to write dating profiles and raising money for their court dates. And they're on, starting media groups and being, YouTube videos, and the same thing that got them in trouble in the first place, they're back out doing again.
Heidi, what were you going to say about that?
I wanted to mention that one of those folks that we've been following pretty closely not only has his own YouTube channel, which has actually been suspended recently, but is on other channels or other platforms. That person is posting under pseudonym because he's not supposed to be on social media. And he's also doing serious agitation around the anti-masking in the schools.
Right.
And has attended school board meetings in multiple communities that he's not a part of.
Well, I want to mention that at least at one point, we were talking about this, I think, I think each of us has heard this before. I don't know how much people have, the people who are listening to this broadcast will have heard it, but that Western New York, or I'm going to guess Erie County, since it was by county or maybe by region, that we had the second most people arrested of any county in the country, the second most. So I do wonder what the first most was, and I do wonder if that's still true, because of course they've continued.
It's LA County. It's LA County. LA County, Los Angeles County.
Oh, okay.
And Erie County is tied for second with 3 other counties in the country.
Oh, okay.
But still, it's wildly disproportionate how many people are in LA County versus Erie County. It's millions difference. Sorry, I forgot the rest of that.
Right. Well, that's true. But the other thing is also we are a lot closer to D.C. for what it's worth. I know that we know that at least two buses of people were brought down there from Western New York, right?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, there were, they carpooled and caravanned and all that sort of stuff, but they chartered at least 2 buses, to go down.
I think it was 3, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's a lot of people. I think it was 110 people. Phil Gambini at Investigative Post is the one who broke that story about how many people in Erie County
had
been arrested.
Oh, good. Because I knew and back to the investigative nature of journalism that is supposed to be in there, needs to be in there, and more really isn't in there in the way it needs to be, as you said, in local news media, in our newspapers also are really having a hard time. So where do people really get the facts? And do people know? I mean, we know we have Fox News. Back to what you said about fair and about balance, right? So balance doesn't mean just saying both sides of a question, the 2 opposing arguments. But to be balanced, you need to be reporting on the actual facts and investigating what those facts are.
Right.
So the fact that people were there with weapons, the fact that people, were violent, clearly violent. You can see people breaking in, you can see people experienced in warfare and policing using the tricks of the trade to get in there and to disrupt, and the threats and the violence and the deaths that actually happened. I mean, I think, to the minimizing and the normalizing of this really just heinous, not that every person knew what was going on, but there were enough people who clearly had it. The plan was obvious, it was clear, it was explicit. And where's Mike Pence? There's nothing theoretical about that. They said it. They built, a gallows type thing. It's not, a question. That fact is not questioned.
Right.
So how can we, what can we do from here to, well, first let's maybe talk a little the nationally, regionally, and then locally. First of all, so what's going on nationally? I mean, there's efforts to hold people accountable. That's what Congress is trying to do. That's what we would hope to see the Department of Justice doing. So what would you each say about the progress there?
Excuse me. I think it's slow. It's meticulous. I think they're doing as good of a job as they can without, they obviously have a bunch of roadblocks and legal battles that they're going to have to fight. And, but I think on the national level, I think the commission is, there was something, I didn't really see the news before I got on here, but something about a Supreme Court decision where the National Archives or whatever will be released. So that will be big information. There were subpoenas yesterday with Trump's kids. So there's a lot going on, and it seems like it's all centered around the Trump family at this point, which is kind of, I think things are starting to narrow and get a little bit tighter, and hopefully we'll see some results in the future. Locally, that's a whole different, almost a whole different conversation. I think the loose organization that a lot of these groups had before January 6th only seem to have, they've become more organized locally. They've become more social media savvy. I don't really want to say that, but there's a coordinated effort going on locally, and I think exposing it is the first thing that needs to happen. And they have financial backing, they have lawyers, they have foot soldiers, they have tweeters, they have, social media people attacking people every day. And I think, their voices are kind of drowning out, voices like Heidi and myself, just on the mass amounts of nonsense that they spew on a day-to-day basis. And it's just constant barrage. Like they're on Twitter 24/7. I mean, there's almost no stop. If it's not one account, it's another one picks up, and it's just a constant battle. And I think, I think local, there's just so much going on, especially around COVID and the mask mandates and, the school issues and what's going on in Williamsville and all these things that, we don't see anyone. They're the silent minority. They're the vocal minority.
Loud.
Yeah,
the
vocal. Right.
Right.
But then the majority of people, whether it's just don't want to get involved or just trying to live their life or doing whatever it is that they're doing, I think we need to pay attention to what's going on around the area specifically, because they're organizing. There's no, they have groups, they have organizations, and they're still out there. They may not be, front and center, but they're there's a whole group of 15 people that stand out on the corner by my street every Saturday at noon, with their "Let's Go Brandon" signs and their, all
Let's
these.
go, Brandon. What's that?
Yeah, well, it's.
We can't say it.
Why,
I don't.
do we not? No, we don't even want to get into it. Okay, I'm going to trust you on that. You'll have to tell me later. But,
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they're out and they're out in force, and the majority of people who are just trying to live their lives and go about their day-to-day business, aren't. They're being drowned out, and it's a problem.
I think one of the major challenges Mark alluded to is that they do have local funding from wealthy, powerful people. And that means that the local media doesn't want to touch it.
right.
Mark has been publishing, investigative posts has published, but not very much. And it's none of the larger outlets have picked up these stories at all in any kind of critical, truly informative, contextual way.
Right.
And even if you look at Buffalo News' coverage, has been essentially carrying water for Caputo and crew for how many years?
Yeah.
But Caputo can do no wrong, according to the Buffalo News, even though if you look at the Washington Post, and it's a completely different analysis.
Well, we don't even hear about Michael Caputo in the Buffalo News, as far as I would see. Barely. Or, maybe I'm missing something, but mostly
it's generally a positive story about him. There isn't anything about, any of the negative stuff that he's associated with on a regular basis. It's all praising and,
But isn't it mostly not also? I mean, I don't think there's a lot of attention paid to him. It's like pay no attention.
I think there's an inordinate amount of attention paid to somebody who doesn't currently live here,
Yeah.
and who off and on lives here.
Oh,
He's not
okay.
actually,
Right.
he has.
He's not a resident of Western New York anymore.
No, he lives in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we're still
But yet
getting
he's
positive
still-
news stories in the Buffalo News.
Yeah, and he's still a part of the politic in this area.
Mm-hmm.
He's still, one of their leaders in a way, even though he's, 1,000 miles away. So, I mean, there's just a whole plethora of things that get swept under the rug by local media, by, especially when it comes to this stuff with January 6th and the anti-vax and anti-mask stuff.
Well, one of the things I think about and I wonder about is, for so many people, it's back to, well, first of all, we talked about truth from the very beginning. So that truth and that investigation to see what are the facts of the matter and what is the truth of the matter. That's one problem. Another problem is our wonderful sociability and our community building efforts. So in other words, to the detriment. So that what happens is, because my friend, my neighbor, somebody that I like, they're going that direction, and that's my friend, and so I listen to my friend, and whatever my friend's doing, hey, you want to come with me? And, and you just hear what you hear. So people do not necessarily get the whole story, and what happens is you're just going down this path where you get a lot of misinformation and disinformation that is put out very purposefully, and then as people get enmeshed and embedded in this community, then they're not going to question what they're hearing from the preferred sources from the leaders in that group or from their friends who are part of that group. And so it builds and we were talking a little bit about cults and how it works a lot like a cult sometimes, is you just sort of buy into this program of thinking, and because all your friends are doing it, and one of the signature aspects of a cult is that people cannot question the leader. They cannot question the espoused theories or statements, and they have to go along with this unidimensional thinking. And then, if for anyone who questions it, oftentimes they will be out, they will be shunned, they will be, maligned. And I'm going to say, he who shall not be named is the king of that. So that happens on a national level, of course, in a very big way, and it can happen in a very small way in community relationships.
Absolutely. I mean, there isn't a day goes by where I don't get some sort of hate tweet or hate message or something telling me to, go F myself or this, that, and the other thing. So it's definitely a problem. And you see, especially now, again, I keep going back to this, but because it's kind of just turned into that, this whole COVID thing and the masks and the vax and all this stuff. And even the attacks on our health commissioner, Gail Bernstein. They're vicious, they're vile, and they're just, it's growing. I don't know, going back to what you say, it's the mentality, the follow mentality, right? So you see someone doing it here, you see someone doing it here, your friend posts a comment there, but it's constant, and it's just all hate. And, how do you combat it?
Right.
Is the $1 million question. And it's almost it's too much. It's overwhelming at times. There's sometimes I'm just like, I gotta step back. I gotta turn off my phone or turn off my computer, just because I'll see something and I get mad. I'm just like, and do what I can not to say something or, bring more attention to something that's just completely misinformed and just hateful or whatever. But sometimes, I think you have to continue to call that out, or it becomes the norm.
Yeah, we have to continue to call out these, the hate, the fascism, the authoritarianism. Mm-hmm. We need to defend our values of justice and multiracial democracy.
Right. Multiracial democracy. And democracy is that. Democracy has to allow people to vote. So vote suppression is anti-democratic. There is no two ways about it. And some of that is just obvious vote suppression, limiting the ballot boxes, as you said, not allowing people to give, limiting the polling stations, right? And then when people have great long lines and, or limiting the early voting, all the things that make it harder for people to vote is clear voter suppression. No question about it.
Yeah, I think we're fortunate here in Erie County and even in New York State, where we don't have a lot of these issues that states like Pennsylvania and Ohio and Georgia, Florida. And
I will say I was very disappointed that the ballot initiatives to expand voting access did not pass in November, and that was because the Republicans poured money into it, where the state Democratic chair just said, "No one asked me," and which is just a ridiculous thing. Do you want people to be included in your coalition? Oh, you don't. You want this coalition to be as white as the Republicans?
Yeah, no, the Conservative Party, especially on the ballot initiatives this past election, the Conservative Party put millions of dollars into fighting that.
And those would have
Single-handedly
dramatically
killed it.
expanded voting access in the state. I think it included same-day registration and
Right. I was
all kinds
confused
of
by
really
that
good
too.
stuff.
It was just crazy. So back to another problem with our democracy, such as it is this money equal to speech, which is a bunch of BS, because of course money is not speech. And so if that allows the wealthy or the PACs or the whatever to influence people, and back to misinforming people about what is what, we just have such a lot to do. You know, what did they say? You know, democracy, such, you know, if you can keep it. You know, that the fragility of democracy, you know, was always going to be something that we need to really struggle to maintain. And, you know, I think of things like, you know, it can't happen here, which was all about it can happen here. It can happen here, and it did happen here, and it happened that we had somebody who, you know, I mean, back to, you know, doing illegal acts in plain sight, you know, including collusion and all kinds of other things in plain sight, and that gets ignored, you know, and you know, trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power, and that hasn't been ignored yet, but it has been, you know, this slow, and I would say, to me, overly careful when you see, you know, back to, you know, I keep using that phrase because I just don't understand how people don't understand that plain English is plain English. You know, when you hear somebody tell people to fight, then then you can't say that they weren't encouraging violence. To me, I mean, that seems to me plain. You're a lawyer, Heidi. Tell me, doesn't that seem plain, or is it just that overly rigorous looking at every possible molecule that could be used as an excuse or a loophole?
I think that the reason it feels so slow is because the case needs to be built meticulously. Mm-hmm. The folks they are going after have a lot of money and a lot of power. Mm-hmm. So Marc mentioned a Supreme Court decision that came out tonight about the National Archives having to turn over Trump's records around the January 6th.
Hallelujah.
Okay?
Yes.
So it was an 8-1 vote.
Mm-hmm.
To make the archives release these records.
That is wonderful.
The one vote against is Clarence Thomas. His wife, Ginny, was deeply involved in the organizing of January 6th.
Really?
So we have to remember that these are the most powerful people in our country with all of the wealth. Mm-hmm. And so how do you get a court case through? Mm-hmm. It's very, very difficult. It's easy against people who don't have any money.
Right.
It's easy against middle class people.
Right.
It's not easy against rich people. Mm-hmm. I could go on a tax rant there if you want.
Right. No, I think you're so right about that. And it's back to the money in politics, which is another thing. And money in power, which is even bigger. You know, there is this way, you know, that, you know, we know what we'd like to think our democracy is, you know, but it's so flawed as it is, and then the dangers are even bigger and are really very pronounced right now. And you know, I think, you know, some of us thought that, you know, once that hurdle had been passed, that everything would be all right. And yet what we see is that we still need our vigilance, and we still have so much work to do to make sure that we keep a democracy. So
There are many people involved in January 6th who considered it a win. That they are using that as an organizing tool to undermine democracy further.
So
it's not over.
Right, no.
We have to keep an eye on it and keep pushing back.
Absolutely. So we just have a little, maybe 7-8 minutes left. So what are some of the things you would recommend to people to do, to learn, to help make sure that we maintain this democracy?
Oh boy.
That's a big one, I know, and yet we have to talk about that, right? We have to think about that. One of the things is, first of all, I'm going to say right off the bat, and I'll spare you saying it, but I'm going to say follow Western New York Media, for one thing, and the Investigative Post, too, for another one. So sources where people are not just saying, oh, well, this one says this one says that. Who could know? No, people can know. So go ahead.
I think one of the easiest things people can do is simply, I hate commenting. I hate comments on Facebook. I've hated comments on blogs over the years. We've turned them off just because I hate it. But I think right now, I think there needs to be some more, when we come back to balance, a good type of balance, where a lot of the misinformation needs to be squashed and fought back against, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be in not on your Facebook page, but on, even county executive polling cars or Erie County's website, pages, posts, those sort of things. There's a lot of misinformation and a lot of hatred in there. And I think the more people comment something on a positive note or in support of, I think social media, especially Twitter, seems to have been doing a really good job lately of pushing all of that stuff, that negativity down under hidden replies and that sort of thing, and pushing stuff up that's more positive and upbeat. And I think more of that. The people need to know there's support out there, that there's people that think like they do, because if you're looking for it, sometimes you just don't see it. Simple things like, we have a submit feature on Western New York Media that used to be used a lot over the years and recently hasn't been used as much, whether it be because of the rise of social media or whatever it is. There's not, there needs to be more voices out there, whether it be on your own Twitter feed or a letter to the editor or in the news, or submitting a post to Western New York Media. Over the years, we weren't always alone. We had Art Voices of the world. We had, the Daily Publics and things we had other blogs and other websites, other local websites that contributed to the conversation, and they're gone. All we have
is the corporate media.
We have the local media and mainstream media, Channel 2, the TV news and the Buffalo News, and we don't have much else.
And we have the Challenger. And the
we do.
There's
the small newspapers and those sort of things. They also submit
Latino Village also
editors and would take posts and then articles and publish your articles. So I think there, if you're looking a way to get involved, that's one way.
Sure, that's great.
An easy way to, on a basic level, to get involved with what's going on around you.
I also take the perspective that as things are like collapsing around us, we've got climate change and
Right, right.
serious threats to our democracy, and our institution. We can't even snowplow, right? There's so much that's falling apart. We also need to be building. We need to be helping our communities be more resilient. And when, like I do that in a couple different ways, like through the art scene and through my cafe and through, I'm chair of the board of Push, all of these different ways of building community help us both learn about each other, learn that maybe the mainstream media is not telling us how
Right.
Our local folks are connected to the insurrection. As we build community, we have an alternative. We have a way to get through disasters.
Right.
The mutual aid that happened on the West Side
Exactly.
during the first few months of COVID. That's something that shouldn't need to be happening when we have plenty of money, but we're using, on a defense budget.
Right.
That's under control, right? So, making sure that we're speaking up for our values and creating community based in those values.
Right. Well, thank you for bringing that up, because both of those things really are very critical for us to do, to really, get at the facts, share and promote actual factual good information, and build community, and have those conversations too. Have those honest conversations about the actual facts of the matter, and also what we really want and what we really need to be the community we want to be, and to be the democracy that we want to have. So I want to say, we're so grateful for both of you having come on the show, for all the work that you do all week long, in your various ways. It's so important for all of us in this community. We've just got to be aware, keep our eyes open, and keep working to have that multiracial democracy that is truly a democracy, where it is power to the people. So that's what we'll be working for. Well, thank you both so very much. Where's your cafe, if you want to just tell that too?
The Intersection Cafe is at 100 Elmwood, at Allen and Elmwood, next to Allentown Pizza.
Oh, okay. Well, that is great to know. So people should come out there. They can get some good conversation there. So I can't thank you both enough. It's been great to have you on. This is Talking Peace, and together we've been talking peace in truth and love. Thank you both so much. That was great. Very, very good.
A little tongue-tied, but I think my points came out.
No, you were great. You were both excellent. And I mean,
it's so nice to actually work with you, like, in real time.
Yeah, I know, right?
We have regular Twitter conversations.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Regular.
Well, this was very,
this is
very
the first time
beautiful.
we've actually interacted.
Oh, this was so beautifully done, and you did really tag team, different points, and build off of the other points. I think we covered everything we really, wanted to. I mean, that was kind of a loose plan, but in terms of that, and so there is a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I'm at the point where I don't want to say some of these people's names and.
Oh, I know. No, I know, because we actually, Heidi and I did a show on this before, so we were also, and that was a little more specific, but it was also more, it's something to be careful around, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, they track me. And stalk all my social media and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I
Right.
block everybody I can, but I know that they're still watching.
They always pop up. It doesn't
Right.
matter. There's another one that pops up. We block 10 and there's 5 more that come. So
Yeah.
there's definitely some sort of weird coordinated effort going on.
Oh, absolutely. You know, you can see it in the
Yeah,
Kelly's.
we're not recording, right? So it's definitely the financial guys.
Well, I think we might be, we might still be on Facebook. That's what I'm not sure.
What? Oh.
So, yeah, I don't think we said anything that shouldn't have been said. So I think.
No, but there's definitely a coordinated effort going on. And I
Right.
think,
Well, we have to coordinate our efforts to have, the truth come out and people really stand up for principles of a democracy, which is what we say we want to be and we do want to be. And so for those who don't want to be, then maybe they should think again or pick another place to live, because this is meant to be a democracy, and we're still working in that direction. So
agreed.
we'll keep on doing that. So, oops. I don't know what that is. Oh. Yes, I do. I should. Yeah. Anyway.
What is it, like a fax machine or something?
No, you know what it is? It's a timer so that we don't go over an hour. So we'd already, I turned, this is not going on the radio for sure. I mean,
But we
this
are live on
latter part. But I think we probably are live on Facebook. So I think you didn't say anything new that you didn't say earlier on.
No.
Right.
No.
Because we know that there's lots of people organized to, and what it is it's really cult behavior. I was talking about, and I didn't get a chance to go and look up the 10 aspects of a cult. And then when people want to break out of a cult, it's a hard thing because you're rejecting all your people that you're surrounded by. You have to break away. And when the cognitive dissonance gets too bad, that's when people go. And so we want to help get that cognitive dissonance to the place where people just have to admit and recognize, the truth of the matter, which is, we're all here to help each other, and we need to help each other, or we're all going to go down.